Hello, friends. Before we begin this story, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. This really helps the channel grow and bring more real stories like this. Also, leave a like and comment on where you're watching from. Now prepare yourself for one of the most disturbing stories I've ever experienced. The 911 call came in at 4:23 a.m. on a Thursday in mid-November 2022. I was on duty with the Navajo Tribal Police based in Shiprock Hill, New Mexico, when dispatcher Sarah Benally handed me the call, her voice trembling in a way I had never heard in her 15 years of service. "Marcus, there's a woman on the line. She's screaming. She says something attacked her family near Red Canyon. There's a child involved. She's terrified. I can barely understand what she's saying. My name is Officer Marcus Nez, and I've worked for the Navajo Tribal Police for 18 years. I've seen it all in this territory: murders, drug trafficking, domestic violence, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for what I encountered that night. Give me the location," I replied, already grabbing my keys and equipment. She says she's on the old Red Canyon Road, about 6 miles north of the abandoned gas station. "Marcus," Sarah hesitated. "She keeps yelling something about not being human. And I hear strange sounds in the background." "What kind of sounds?" "I don't know how to describe it. It's like howling, but different. And there are children crying." I felt a chill run down my spine. Red Canyon had a sinister reputation. The elders always warned us to avoid that area after sunset. There were old stories my grandmother told of creatures that roamed those canyons, things that shouldn't exist. "Keep her on the line. I'm on my way. Call for backup." I left the station at 4:27 a.m., speeding along deserted roads. The moon was nearly full, casting a ghostly silvery light over the rocky landscape. The road to Red Canyon was precarious, riddled with potholes and dangerous curves. My headlights cut through the darkness, occasionally catching the glowing eyes of coyotes peering from the underbrush. When I was about 3 miles from the scene, my radio crackled. It was Sarah, and her voice was thick with panic. "Marcus." The connection dropped. The last thing she said was, "She's getting in the car." And then I heard screaming, terrible screaming. Approximate age of the woman, 30s, I think. She said she was with her husband and 2 children. "Marcus." She was so terrified she could barely speak properly. She said they saw something following them down the road, something big that walked on 2 legs. My blood ran cold. In Navajo culture, there are things we don't talk about openly, especially with strangers. But among us, everyone knows the stories. Stories of the Naldlushi, the skinwalkers, witches who abandoned the path of harmony and gained the power to transform into animals, creatures that hunt in the darkness, that can imitate human voices, that leave only terror and death in their wake. I've always been skeptical of these stories. I grew up torn between 2 worlds, the traditional Navajo and the modern American. I went to college, studied criminology, and learned to trust evidence and logic. But that night, driving toward Red Canyon with the full moon above me, I felt a primal fear that no police training had taught me to control. At 4:51 a.m., I spotted the vehicle. A red Dodge Ram pickup truck was stopped in the middle of the road, its headlights still on and the driver's door open. The engine was off, but the radio was playing softly, a country song that sounded grotesquely normal in that setting. I stopped my patrol car about 20 meters away and grabbed my flashlight and gun. Protocol said to wait for backup, but if there were children in danger, I couldn't wait. "Central, I've arrived at the scene. An abandoned truck, door open. I'll investigate." "Negative. Marcus, reinforcements are 15 minutes away. Hold on." But I was already getting out of the vehicle. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the distant sound of wind blowing through the rock formations. I approached the truck with my gun drawn, every sense on high alert. "Tribal police, if there's anyone here, identify yourself." No answer. When I reached the truck, what I saw made me shudder. The interior was in total disarray, shattered glass scattered across the seat, bloodstains on the steering wheel and dashboard, deep claw marks in the upholstery. The windshield had a spiderweb-like crack, as if something heavy had hit it from the inside. In the back seat, I found a children's doll and a tablet that was still plugged in, frozen in a coloring game, a school backpack with the name Emma, 6, embroidered on it, a lunchbox with untouched sandwiches. On the passenger floor, a cell phone with a cracked screen still showing the 911 call. Duration, 4 minutes and 37 seconds. Central, I need a forensic team here. I have clear signs of a struggle, blood and the victims are missing. Then I heard it, a sound that made my blood run cold, a high-pitched scream, sounding almost human, but not quite. It came from the rocks to the left of the road, perhaps 200 yards away. I ran toward the sound, my flashlight swinging wildly as I jumped over rocks and bushes. Police! Where are you? I'm here to help! Another scream, closer now. And then a voice, a child's voice. Help, please. Mommy. It was a girl. Emma, I thought. It had to be Emma. Emma? Emma, where are you? Keep talking. I'll find you. I'm here. Cold. It's dark. I followed the voice, my heart hammering in my chest. The moon illuminated the path, just enough to keep me from completely stumbling. The rock formations of Red Canyon loomed around me like ominous sentinels, their shadows creating pockets of impenetrable darkness. Emma, keep talking to me, honey. Are you hurt? He's here, the man. What man, Emma? Where's your mommy? That's when I noticed something strange. The girl's voice was coming from multiple directions. First from my left, then from my right, then from behind me. It was impossible. I stopped in my tracks, cold sweat trickling down the back of my neck despite the frigid temperature. Slowly, I turned 360 degrees with my flashlight, sweeping the area around me. And then I saw it, about 30 meters in front of me, illuminated by the moonlight, stood a figure, tall, at least 8 feet tall, hunched over in a way no human could possibly manage. Its back was to me, completely still. Police! Turn around slowly with your hands visible. The figure didn't move. There was no sound, not even breathing. It was like a grotesque statue silhouetted against the night sky. With my gun firmly in my right hand and the flashlight in my left, I took a few careful steps toward the figure. This is your final warning. Turn around now. And then the creature turned its head, just its head. It spun 180 degrees like an owl, keeping its body in the same position. What I saw made me instinctively recoil. It wasn't a human face. It was a grotesque mask of skin stretched over bones that shouldn't be there. The eyes glowed yellow in the light of my flashlight, like those of an animal, but with a malevolent intelligence no animal possessed. The mouth opened, revealing teeth that were too long, too sharp. And then he spoke in Emma's voice, "Help, please, Mommy." My rational mind tried to process what I was seeing. Hallucination. It had to be. Lack of sleep, stress, the ancient stories planting seeds in my imagination. But then the creature turned completely, with movements that defied all human anatomy, and began walking toward me. Every step he took sounded like bones breaking and reforming. He walked on 2 legs, but incorrectly, as if he were imitating human gait without fully understanding how to do it. His hands, if you could call them that, were elongated, with fingers that had too many joints. "Stay where you are," I yelled, aiming my gun at the creature's center of mass. She stopped. She tilted her head to the side, still wearing that grotesque face that looked like human skin stretched over something completely different underneath. And then she spoke again, but this time in a different voice, a man's voice. "Marcus Nez, son of Sarah Nez, grandson of Helen Nez." How did she know my name? How did she know my mother's name? My grandmother's name. You should have stayed away, Marcus. Red Canyon is our territory. Always has been. The creature took another step. I fired. 3 shots, all true to the chest. It staggered back, but didn't fall. There was no blood, just holes that seemed to close before my eyes. It was then that I heard the others. Growls came from all directions. I whipped around, and what I saw nearly made me drop my gun. There were at least 5 of them, 5 of these things, surrounding me. Some seemed to be wearing animal skins, coyotes, deer, even what looked like a bear. But they all had that same off-kilter quality, that sense of something deeply unnatural trying to pass itself off as natural. I was surrounded. Central, I need backup immediately. Red Canyon, coordinates. One of them moved with impossible speed, ripping the radio from my hand and smashing it into the ground. Another knocked my gun away with a blow that felt more like a tree branch than a hand. I did the only thing I could do. I ran. I ran faster than I had ever run in my life, leaping over rocks and bushes, my lungs burning in the cold night air. Behind me, I heard those sounds, that terrible cracking of bones, those howls that belonged to no animal I knew. They were toying with me. I knew it. They could catch me at any moment, but they were prolonging the hunt, relishing my terror. I tripped and fell, rolling down the side of a small ravine. I hit a rock hard enough to knock the wind out of me. When I looked up, the creatures were at the top of the ravine, looking down. 5 grotesque silhouettes silhouetted against the full moon. It was then that I heard the voice, a real human voice, coming from behind me. Here. Quick! I turned and saw an elderly man emerging from a crevice in the rocks, waving frantically. Without a second thought, I ran toward him. He pulled me into the opening seconds before the creatures leaped toward me. The crack led to a small cave. The man lit a gas lantern, revealing a surprisingly large space with symbols painted on the walls, Navajo protective symbols I recognized from my grandmother's stories. "Be quiet," he whispered. "They can't get in here. The wards prevent it." Outside, I could hear the sounds of those things searching, growling, scratching at the rocks, but none of them tried to enter the cave. The man was old, perhaps in his 80s, with long white hair tied back in a traditional ponytail. His face was deeply lined, but his eyes were incredibly alert. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, still panting. "My name is Thomas Watchman. I was a Hatawi, a healing singer before I retired. But I never really retired from this fight." He pointed to the creatures outside. "Do you know what they are?" "Yi Nald Lushi," I whispered. Even in my disbelief, there was no other explanation. "Yes, skinwalkers, warlocks who sold their souls for power. They've ruled Red Canyon for decades, and no one does anything because..." He paused. "Because they're protected." Protected by whom? By the tribal government, or at least by certain members of it. There is a conspiracy, Officer Nez. One that goes deeper than you realize. Before I could respond, I heard sirens in the distance. Reinforcements were finally arriving. The creatures outside must have heard it too, because the sounds abruptly stopped. Thomas approached the cave entrance and peered in. "They're gone, for now, but they'll be back. They always are." "The family, the woman who called 911 and her children, they are dead, probably, or worse." Thomas's face was grim. "Skinwalkers don't just kill for the sake of killing. They torture, transform, corrupt. It's part of their ritual, part of how they maintain their power. I need to find them. If there's any chance, you'll die if you try. Unless," he hesitated, "unless you're willing to learn the truth. The real truth about Red Canyon, and why these creatures have never been stopped, even though everyone knows they're here." We left the cave together. 3 tribal police cars were approaching, along with an Indian Health Service SUV. My partner, Officer James Tso, was the first to reach me. "Marcus, thank God you're okay. What happened? We found the truck, but you were gone." I looked at Thomas, who shook his head almost imperceptibly. A warning. I followed a sound. I thought it was one of the victims. I got lost among the rocks." James frowned. "You're covered in scratches and in a cold sweat. Are you sure you're okay?" "I'm fine, but we need to organize a search. The family is out there somewhere." Over the next few hours, as the sun began to rise, we mounted a full-scale search operation. 12 officers, 4 drug-sniffing dogs, and a county helicopter. We searched all of Red Canyon. What we found was disturbing. 300 meters from the abandoned truck, we found the father's body, Daniel Yazzie, 34 years old, or what was left of him. He was torn apart in a way no animal I knew could do. The wounds were deep, precise, almost surgical in places, but most disturbing was his face, frozen in an expression of such intense terror that several of the officers had to step aside. His wife, Jennifer Yazzie, was 100 yards away. Her body bore similar wounds, but there was something more. Symbols had been carved into her skin, symbols that Thomas later identified as witch ritual marks. But the children, 6-year-old Emma and her 4-year-old brother Jacob, were never found. No trace, no blood, nothing, as if they had simply vanished into thin air. The medical examiner, Dr. Charlie Begay, was perplexed by the bodies. "Marcus, in 30 years of doing this, they're not from a bear, I've never seen injuries like these. They're not from a mountain lion, they're not from any animal native to the area. And look at this." He pointed to marks around the victims' throats. "These are handprints, but the fingers are too long, too articulated. It's as if something trying to look human had strangled them," I added. He looked at me with surprise and fear. "You saw something out there, didn't you?" "I don't know what I saw," I lied, "but I knew. And worse, I knew I couldn't tell anyone without being considered crazy or traumatized." The following days were a whirlwind of formal investigation. The press picked up the story. Family killed in brutal attack on Navajo reservation. And theories proliferated. Wild animals, a serial killer, even a drug deal gone wrong. No one mentioned skinwalkers, not officially, but among the Navajo, everyone whispered. Red Canyon was awake again. The creatures were hunting. And then the other calls started coming in. 3 days after the Yazzie incident, another family reported seeing something following their car near Red Canyon. 2 days later, a hunter disappeared in the same area. A week later, 2 teenagers who went there on a dare never returned. Each case followed the same pattern: sightings of tall, distorted figures, sounds of voices imitating loved ones, and then nothing. Some victims were found torn apart. Others simply disappeared. Tribal police increased patrols in Red Canyon, but officers began refusing to go alone. Some requested transfers, others simply resigned. It was then that Thomas Watchman came to me again. He found me in a cafe in Shiprock, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "You need to see this." Inside were photographs, old photographs, some dating back 50 years. They all showed the same place, Red Canyon. And in all of them, if you looked closely, you could see figures in the shadows, tall, distorted figures watching. "This has been going on for decades," Thomas explained quietly. "My own brother disappeared in Red Canyon in 1978. He was never found. My father investigated but was told to stop by the tribal council. They said it was for the greater good, that messing with certain things would bring misfortune to all the people. Why would the council protect these things? Because not everyone on the council is what they seem." Thomas leaned forward. "Do you know how someone becomes a skinwalker? The stories say you have to kill a family member, an act so terrible that it breaks you completely, allowing evil to enter." "Exactly. And do you think someone who did this simply lives as a hermit in the desert? No. They infiltrate. They assume positions of power. They become respected in the community, and then they protect their secrets and those of their brothers." "Are you saying there are tribal council members who are skinwalkers?" I'm saying there are people in positions of power who know about them and protect them. Out of fear, out of bribery, or because they themselves are corrupt. Thomas pulled out another photograph. This one was more recent, taken just a few years ago. It showed a tribal council meeting. He pointed to 3 people in the image. Harrison Benelli, Vice President of the Council, Robert Sosi, Chief of Tribal Police, and Linda Begay, Federal Judge. They were all involved in covering up incidents in Red Canyon. They all have connections to missing persons cases that were never properly investigated. That's a serious accusation, Thomas. I know. And that's why no one did anything about it. The last 2 officers who tried to investigate further were transferred to remote posts or forced into early retirement. One of them, Officer Daniel Whitehorse, was found dead 6 months later. Suicide, they said. But I knew Daniel. He wasn't the type to kill himself. I stared at the photographs spread out on the table, my mind trying to process everything. If Thomas was right, I wasn't just dealing with supernatural creatures. I was facing a conspiracy that reached all the way to the top of the reservation's power structure. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because you saw it. You looked into their eyes and survived. That's rare, Marcus. Very rare. They usually don't leave witnesses. The fact that you're still alive means something. Maybe you're protected somehow. Maybe you're the one who can finally do something. And what exactly do you expect me to do? Investigate, but in secret. Trust no one in the hierarchy. Gather evidence, and when you have enough, expose everything. Not just the skinwalkers, but the people who protect them. This is professional suicide, or worse. Yes, Thomas agreed. It probably is. But how many more people have to die before someone has the courage to act? He was right, and I knew it. I thought of Emma and Jacob Yazzie, 2 children who never had a chance. I thought of all the families who were told lies instead of the truth about what happened to their loved ones. Okay, I said finally. I'll look into it, but I need your help. I need to understand what we're really dealing with. Thomas smiled, but there was no joy in it. Then you need to learn about skinwalkers, what they really are, how they work, and most importantly, how they can be stopped. Over the next few weeks, Thomas became my unofficial teacher. We met in secret places, his secluded mountain cabin, ancient ruins, places protected by traditional blessings where he assured us we could not be observed. He taught me things the police academy never covered. How to recognize a skinwalker even in human form, the eyes that glow slightly in the dark, the way they avoid their reflection, the tendency to tilt their head at unnatural angles, how to protect themselves with cedar ash and specific chants, how skinwalkers function in covens, typically 5 to 7 members, each with specific abilities. They're not invincible, Thomas told me one night as we sat around a campfire on his property. But they're extremely difficult to kill. Ordinary bullets don't work. You saw that. They can heal wounds almost instantly. So how can we stop them? There are traditional ways. Weapons blessed by a Hatawi. Bullets made of white ash, holy fire. But the most effective, he paused, the most effective is to make them say their true names. A skinwalker who reveals their original human name loses their power and reverts to human form. That's why they are so careful never to reveal it. And how do you get someone to reveal a name they desperately hide? That's the hard part. It usually involves capturing them and forcing them through a specific ritual. But even that is extremely dangerous. A captured skinwalker is a desperate creature, and a desperate creature is even more dangerous. While Thomas tutored me, I conducted my own secret investigation. I began discreetly, reviewing old missing persons cases in Red Canyon. The pattern was undeniable. At least 30 disappearances in the last 40 years, all within a 10-mile radius of Red Canyon. And in almost every case, the investigation had been closed prematurely. I found notes in the files, notes written by officers who were no longer with the force or who were dead. An officer named Robert Nakai had written in 1995, direct orders from Chief Tosi to close the Yellow Horse investigation. No explanation given. Something is wrong here. Robert Nakai was found dead 6 months later. A car accident on a straight, empty road. Another official, Susan Manuelito, had written in 2003. Witnesses report non-human figures near the disappearance site. Forbidden to include this in the official report. The council is hiding something. Susan Manuelito retired early in 2004 and moved to California. I tracked her down and called. I don't talk about it. She told me immediately when I mentioned Red Canyon. I was advised very firmly to forget everything I saw. Susan, people are dying, children are disappearing. You may not talk about it officially, but can you at least tell me if I'm on the right track? There was a long silence. Then, you saw them, didn't you? The skinwalkers. Then you know you can't stop them. Not with the protection they have. When I discovered the connection between the council and the skinwalkers, I was called to a private meeting. Harrison Benally and 2 other council members were there. They didn't make any explicit threats, but the message was clear: shut up or face the consequences. Did they admit to knowing about the skinwalkers? Not directly. But Benally said something I've never forgotten. He said, "Officer Manuelito, there are forces on this reservation that have existed far longer than the tribal police, forces that maintain a delicate balance. To upset that balance would be reckless." And then he smiled. And Marcus, I swear for a second, his eyes glowed yellow in the light. "Do you think Benally is one of them?" "I think Benally knows too much and has lived too long. The man is 78, but looks 60. And his background, Marcus, if you dig deep, you'll find disturbing things, missing relatives, connections to unsolved cases, but no one dares investigate him because he's too powerful." After this conversation, I focused my attention on Harrison Benally. He had been vice chairman of the tribal council for 18 years, a position of immense power. But his history before that was strangely murky. I combed through public records, birth certificates, and school transcripts. Harrison Benally seemed to have materialized out of nowhere in 1985, in his early 30s, claiming to have lived off the reservation. There were no previous employment records, no verifiable educational history. It was as if he simply appeared, fully formed. Even more suspicious, I found 3 other men named Harrison Benally in tribal records. One died in 1972, another in 1980. The third disappeared in 1984. And all of them, according to old photos, looked surprisingly similar to the current Harrison Benally. I was building my case, gathering evidence, when the incident that changed everything happened. It was a new moon night, 2 months after the attack on the Yazzie family. I was returning from a routine patrol when I received an emergency call. A house fire near Red Canyon, Thomas Watchman's house. My heart sank. I slammed on the accelerator, arriving in record time. Thomas's cabin was ablaze, flames reaching the night sky. Other officers were already there, trying to control the blaze. "Is anyone inside?" I shouted to James Tso. "We don't know." The call came from a neighbor who saw the fire. No one answered when we knocked on the door. Without thinking, I ran toward the cabin. James tried to grab me, but I shook him off. I threw my jacket over my head and ran into the flames. The heat was unbearable. The smoke burned my lungs. Thomas, where are you?" I found him in the back room, lying on the floor, unconscious but still breathing. He had a deep head wound. This wasn't an accident. Someone had attacked him first and then set him on fire. With strength I didn't know I possessed, I dragged Thomas out seconds before the ceiling caved in. The paramedics rushed him away, but before he completely lost consciousness, he grabbed my arm. It wasn't an accident. They found out. "Protect the children." His words were jumbled, barely audible. "What children, Thomas?" "Emma and Jacob." "They're not dead, transformed. You need abandoned ceremonial center, 2 miles north of Red Canyon." Then he completely passed out. The paramedics took him to the hospital in Farmington. I watched the ambulance drive away, my mind processing what he had said. Were the children alive? But how? And what did he mean by transformed? I waited until the fire scene was under control and the other officers were distracted. Then, discreetly, I slipped away, got into my patrol car, and drove north of Red Canyon. Thomas had mentioned an abandoned ceremonial center. I knew the place. It was an ancient stone structure that had been used for traditional ceremonies decades ago, before being abandoned for reasons no one could explain clearly. The elders always warned me to stay away from there. Bad place, my grandmother used to say. Wrong energy. I arrived there at 3 a.m. The structure was in ruins, with crumbling walls and a partially collapsed roof. But there were signs of recent activity, tire tracks, footprints, and still warm fire ashes. I drew my gun, this time loaded with the special bullets Thomas had given me. Bullets dipped in white ash and blessed according to traditional ritual. I didn't know if they would work, but it was better than nothing. Emma, Jacob, if you're here, I'm the police. I'm here to help. A sound came from within the ruins, a childish whisper. Help us, please. With my flashlight in one hand and my gun in the other, I entered. The interior was larger than it appeared from the outside, a series of chambers connected by narrow passages. The walls were covered in symbols, not protective symbols like those in Thomas's cave, but something more sinister, symbols of summoning, of transformation. I followed the sounds deeper into the structure, and then, in a large chamber in the center, I found them. Emma and Jacob Yazzie, or what was left of them. They were crouched in a corner, trembling. But there was something terribly wrong with them. Their movements were jerky, unnatural. Their eyes glowed faintly, even without my flashlight shining directly on them. And when Emma smiled at me, I saw that her teeth were much sharper than they should have been. You came to save us. Her voice was strange, with multiple harmonies, like several voices speaking at once. Yes, Emma, I'm going to get you out of here. I'm going to take you back to your family. Our family is dead, Jacob interrupted. His voice also had that strange quality. We watched them die. We helped them die. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? It was then that I realized they weren't Emma and Jacob anymore. They were something else, something that was using the children's bodies as vessels. The transformation process Thomas had mentioned, the skinwalkers. They turned children, I whispered, horrified. Transformed, trained, corrupt, a voice said behind me. I spun around quickly, my gun pointing at the chamber entrance. Harrison Benally was there, flanked by two figures I didn't recognize. But from the way they moved, the way their shadows seemed to twist independently in the light of my flashlight, I knew who they were. Officer Nez. You've been very curious lately. Benally smiled, and this time there was no attempt to appear human. His eyes glowed golden yellow, and when he spoke, I saw those long, sharp teeth. Thomas Watchman should have kept his mouth shut, just like Daniel Whitehorse should have, just like Susan Manuelito should have. You killed them all. I've kept my balance. Benally stepped forward. Do you know how old I am, officer? My first life began in 1847. I've witnessed the arrival of the white people, the long walk, the establishment of the reservations. And through it all, my people, my true brothers and sisters, have survived by keeping our power secret. You are not the Navajo people. You have betrayed everything the people stand for. We are the survivors. Benally's voice echoed in the chamber. While others died from diseases brought by white people, from starvation during the long walk, from alcoholism and despair on the reservations, we persisted, we adapted, we evolved. You murder children and turn them into monsters. We recruit those with potential, the orphans, the forgotten, the ones no one will miss. And we shaped them into something greater than they could ever be. I looked at Emma and Jacob, who were now standing, moving to block my exit. They had a family. They had a life. They had a mediocre life that would end in misery like so many others on the reservation. We offer power, immortality, freedom from the limitations of human mortality. You offer damnation. Benali laughed, the sound echoing unnaturally off the stone walls. Damnation. We are free, Officer Nez. Free from the petty laws of men. Free from the limitations of the body. Free from death. You could join us. Someone with your potential would be welcome. I would rather die. That can be arranged, Benali signaled, and the two creatures beside him began to transform. It wasn't like in the movies. It was much worse. Bones broke and reformed with sickening sounds, skin stretched and tore, muscles contorted. Within seconds, two wolf-like creatures stood where humanoid figures had been. I fired 3 times. The white ash bullets struck both creatures, and this time they had an effect. They howled in pain, smoke rising from their wounds, but they were not defeated. Interesting, Benali observed. Thomas taught you the old ways, but our skins are ancient, our power deep. It'll take more than a few blessed bullets. The creatures attacked. I kept shooting, backing away as much as I could. I landed 5 more hits, and the creatures thinned, but they kept coming. That's when I heard the chant, a traditional Navajo chant, loud and clear, echoed through the structure. Benali froze, her eyes widening in recognition and fear. No! A figure emerged from the shadows, not Thomas. He was in the hospital. It was someone else, an elderly woman I recognized as Eleanor Littlebird. A respected healing singer I hadn't known was involved in this. She continued her chant, unrolling a small bag from which she took handfuls of ash, scattering it in a circle around me. The wolf creatures backed away, unable to approach. The circle will only last a few minutes, Eleanor called to me. When I give the signal, you run. I'll take care of them. You can't face them alone. I'm not alone. As if summoned by his words, 5 more elders emerged from the shadows, 4 men and 1 woman, all dressed in traditional ceremonial garb. Each carried sacred objects and began their own chants. You have no power over us, Benali roared, but there was fear in his voice now. There are too many of us. We have dominated Red Canyon for generations. And for generations, we have watched silently, waiting for the right moment. Eleanor replied calmly. You have become arrogant, Harrison. Arrogant and careless. Attacking Thomas was a mistake. Exposing the children was a mistake. And now you will pay. The elders formed a circle around Benali and her creatures, their chants intertwining in complex harmony. The air in the chamber began to tremble with energy. Benali tried to transform, beginning to assume his true form. But the chants held him captive, forcing him to maintain a nearly human form. You can't kill me, he screamed. I am immortal. You are Aaron Benali, Eleanor declared in an authoritative voice. Born in 1832, dead in 1866, reborn through the murder of your own brother in 1867. That is your true name. That is your damnation, Benali screamed. The mention of his true name broke his hold. His form began to collapse, the skinwalker's skin dissolving to reveal a human figure beneath. An old man, so old he looked more like an animated corpse. The other creatures also began to transform back, unable to maintain their animal forms without Benali's leadership. Marcus, the children! Eleanor shouted. I looked at Emma and Jacob. They were on the ground, writhing, trapped between forms. The transformation process wasn't complete. There was still a chance to save them. I ran toward them, breaking the protective circle. Eleanor tossed me a small bag. Cedar ash. Make them inhale. I opened the bag and placed the ashes near the children's faces. They coughed and struggled, but slowly their eyes returned to normal. The sharp teeth receded. The jerking movement ceased. Behind me, the elders had bound Benali and the other creatures with ropes made of blessed, braided yucca fibers. Without their skinwalker powers, they were just frail, old humans. But we knew we couldn't just lock them up. No ordinary prison could hold them, and the legal system was full of their sympathizers. What do we do now? I asked Eleanor. Now we do what should have been done long ago, a traditional trial. According to the old laws, not the white man's. For the next few weeks, we operated outside the official system. Eleanor and the other elders, all members of a secret society that had monitored the skinwalkers for generations, held a traditional tribunal. Witnesses were called, families of victims, survivors, others who had been silenced by fear. Thomas Watchman survived the attack, but was left with permanent scars. He testified about his decades of research. Susan Manuelito returned from California to testify. Other officers who had been forced into silence finally spoke out. The evidence was overwhelming. Harrison Benally and his coven were responsible for at least 50 deaths over decades. Children kidnapped and turned, families destroyed, officers murdered. The traditional court found them guilty, but the punishment was something that still haunts me. According to ancient laws, a defeated skinwalker stripped of his power must face death in the same way he dealt death to others. Benally was taken to the heart of Red Canyon, to a place specially prepared by the elders. I won't go into detail about what happened there. Suffice it to say that Benally and his followers didn't die quickly, and their screams echoed through Red Canyon for 3 days before finally falling silent. Emma and Jacob were saved, but the trauma of what they experienced will take a lifetime to heal. They were adopted by Eleanor Littlebird, who had experience working with children affected by dark magic. I still visit them sometimes. They are improving, slowly relearning what it means to be normal children. The official case was closed with a convenient lie. Harrison, Benally, and the others died in a tragic car accident while fleeing the investigation into the Yazzie family attack. The media accepted this without much question. The truth was impossible to report anyway, but the story didn't end there. 3 months after Benaly's trial, I began receiving letters with no return address, with strange symbols on the envelopes. They all contained the same basic message: you have destroyed an ancient family. There are others. We are watching. We await our revenge. The Red Canyon skinwalkers were defeated, but they were just one coven among many. Eleanor explained to me that there are dozens of covens scattered across Native American lands, each operating in secret, each with their own power connections. You've made yourself a target, Marcus, she warned me. They won't forget what you did. You'll need protection for the rest of your life. And so, I began a new life. I'm still an officer in the Navajo tribal police, but now I'm also part of Eleanor's secret society, the guardians who monitor and combat skinwalkers when necessary. I learned the ancient chants, the protective rituals, the signs of recognition. My home is covered with blessings. I always carry cedar ash and other traditional protections. And at night, especially on nights with a full moon, I still hear the distant howls of Red Canyon. Howls that aren't those of normal coyotes or wolves, reminders that the battle never truly ends, that evil is never completely defeated, only kept at bay. But I also learned something else. I learned that ancient stories aren't just stories. They are warnings passed down from generation to generation for a reason. They are reminders that there are forces in this world, especially in these ancient lands, that defy modern understanding. And I learned that sometimes a police officer's duty goes beyond the written law. Sometimes, to truly protect and serve, you have to be willing to step into the darkness and face monsters the law books don't recognize. This was my story, the story of Red Canyon and the skinwalkers who hunted there. I know many won't believe it. They'll say it's folklore, superstition, trauma causing hallucinations. But for those of you who live on reservations, especially the Navajo Nation, you know there are places to avoid after sunset. You know there are sounds in the desert that don't come from normal animals. You know that sometimes old stories are truer than any newspaper. Red Canyon is quiet now, at least quieter than it was. Families no longer fear passing through during the day. But at night, everyone still avoids that place. And I keep patrolling, vigilant, always watching for signs that the darkness is returning, because it always does. It's only a matter of time. If you're listening to this story and live near any traditional indigenous land, heed the warnings of your elders. If they tell you to avoid a certain place, avoid it. If you hear something in the desert that sounds like a familiar voice calling you, don't respond. If you see something moving erratically, something that looks like an animal but isn't quite, leave. And if your eyes meet those of one of these creatures, if you look into those glowing yellow eyes and feel the primal terror that comes from facing something truly unnatural, pray to whatever force you believe protects you. Because in the end, it was only luck and the intervention of guardians I didn't know that saved me. Not everyone is so lucky. Red Canyon remains, and with it, the memories of all who were lost there. They are not forgotten, their stories are told, their names remembered, and as long as there are those willing to fight, willing to face the darkness, even knowing the cost, there is hope that evil can be kept at bay. My name is Officer Marcus Nez. This was my story, and if you ever find yourself driving near Red Canyon on a full moon, and you hear howls that make your blood run cold and your soul tremble, please, just keep driving. Some things in the desert are better left alone. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell. Share in the comments if you have any personal experiences with the paranormal or places that seem off. And remember, not everything that seems impossible is.